She'll be Lucille Ball. I'll be Desi Arnaz. Let's preview the Desi Arnaz Stakes at Del Mar. Hi, everyone. Matthew DeSantis here with NYRA Bets, along with my colleague, not Lucille Ball, but indeed Kaylie Shapiro. Kaylie, did that reference go over your head? Is that a little dated for you? Or do you know?
I got it.
Okay, she knows I love Lucy and Desi Arnaz. And we have a preview of Sunday's Desi Arnaz Stakes taking place at Del Mar. Before we do, want to remind you to press that like button and subscribe to NYRA Bets YouTube. And if you're not playing on NYRA Bets yet, make sure to press that promo code bonus200. If you use the promo code bonus200, you get up to a $200 deposit match bonus on NYRA Bets. So make sure to use that promo code bonus200 today. Well, Kaylie, our friends out in California have been dealing with a lot of bad weather. Saturday's card was canceled. The Desi Arnaz was supposed to be run then, now moved to Sunday. This is still a really exciting race, and we get to see some pretty interesting fillies that were on the juvenile fillies trail at one point, if you will, and are now cutting back to one turn.
Definitely. And it's always exciting when Bob Baffert has an entry and looks like the filly has a little bit of talent as well. And obviously tipped off a little bit in some of her starts, but still looks, promising and maybe can make it to the Oaks. Who knows? So races like this are always exciting, and it's a competitive field.
It is a competitive field. And even though you have a very heavy favorite in Himika, who we'll get to in a second, but I got a question for you before we get into this, and maybe a silly question. You'll roll your eyes at me. In 40 years, is there going to be a Timothy Chalamet Stakes? Is there going to be?
That's crazy.
Is there going to be a Sabrina Carpenter Stakes?
Well, she's the singer.
Maybe there's a Tay-Tay. Maybe we'll get Taylor. Maybe we'll get the Taylor Swift Stakes run at Penn National or something like that. Take it all the way back home. Anyway,
I love it.
I love it too. As a native of Reading, Pennsylvania, Taylor's hometown. Shout out, Taylor. All right, now listen. Before we get into this, we should say, like I said, the Bob Hope was supposed to be run on Sunday, and that was the race for the boys, kind of the complimentary piece to the Desi Arnaz. That race did not make, and so that race will actually be added as an additional race, I believe, next Friday. So just so people at home are aware, no Saturday racing at Del Mar. Sunday is racing with the Desi Arnaz as the feature race. The Bob Hope will be moved to the following Friday. So just a little bit of maneuvering there. But let's talk about this 6-horse field in Del Mar for the Desi Arnaz. And like I said, we do have a very strong favorite at number 3, Himika. But let's start with the inside and work our way out and talk about each of these horses. And starting with the number 1, Stuffy Mist, 20-1 for Victor Garcia. A horse that certainly is stakes placed last time out. The speed figures would need to get a lot better, but interested in your thoughts with this one with Taylor Bays aboard.
Yeah, definitely need to see improve in the figures. And I just think that this horse is, pretty big price and has run up against some of the fillies that we see in this field as well, and was really no match for those in any of her starts. The only one that she won was a maiden claiming or maiden optional claiming. So definitely a big long shot here. Yeah,
very much so. And has running up against Himika and 3 or 4 starts and has not really made much of an impression there in terms of really being able to get into that margin of defeat. So would have to be a pretty big price. Now, number 2 horse, Bourbon and Ginger. Maybe I've been drinking a little too much bourbon. Maybe you have too, because I know you have a high opinion of this horse also. 15-1 on the morning line. This feels like a generous price, no?
Oh, yeah. I thought it was such a generous price on this horse. I mean, if you look at her form, it looks like she's not really in the best of form, but you can also look at it as a filly that's trying a couple of different things. I mean, first time out, she won that race and she did it very professionally as well. And she kind of re-engaged with the leader, kind of let them went by. She broke fast and then kind of, let a horse go by her and then went and caught them again. So I really like that debut. Next time out, stretched out to 7 furlongs in a grade 1. I don't think that it was the 7 furlongs that was the issue. I think it was just a really deep field and pretty quick step up for this one. And then they tried her on the turf and she didn't disgrace herself, but clearly she prefers the dirt. And you'd imagine so with her pedigree as well. She's the half sibling to Life Talk, that Mike Rapoli horse that she was a pretty good runner.
She was.
And she was able to stretch out effectively as well. And I'd imagine this one is going to handle this distance no problem. And 15-1, I thought was a very generous price for this trainer this jockey and Spendthrift Farm as the owner.
Yes, the Spendthrift Farm Silks had a good weekend out at Del Mar for the Breeders' Cup, obviously with Ted Nafi. Richard Mandela, always dangerous in these spots. And yeah, DeMuro, coming over from riding in Japan, has won over half of his mounts. We talk about how Flavian Pratt's on fire up here at Aqueduct. DeMuro's out of his mind out at Del Mar in a much smaller sample size, but still riding so well. This one has a bullet coming in. I'm so glad you mentioned Life Talk as the half sibling. Now, obviously sired by Gun Runner as opposed to Bolt Doro. Bolt Doro, a little bit more of a sprint influence, but still, the damn influence was there and was pretty prominent in terms of being able to have some influence on helping this one stretch out a little bit longer. I just think this one makes a lot of sense at 15-1 to certainly use underneath at the very least.
Absolutely. And that's why I put this one right in second. You know, in a field where you have a pretty heavy favorite, you're going to take a shot with who you're going to put second. I didn't want to put the horse at 2-1. Even if they fit, you can make an argument all day that this Bourbon and Ginger could even upset the race. We don't know what we could see from her. She really is working lights out ever since that turf try. So certainly caught my eye that last work, 35-4.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, going to get out of the gate quickly. I think that's been a little bit of an issue maybe the last couple of times, not maybe broken quite as forward. You'd expect that speed to come back maybe a little bit here, certainly for Mandela and company. Now let's go to your top choice and my top choice as well in the morning line favorite, and that is the number 3 Himika for trainer Bob Baffert, a horse that really has done very little wrong around one turn against this level of competition. And you pointed out something with the jockey aboard.
Yes, 3 for 3 with Juan Hernandez aboard. So that really catches the eye. I mean, if you look at the 2 races that she disappointed in, I mean, she really did. Like she went from a 90 on debut, won dominantly, beat stablemates, and then next time up won a grade 3 in her next start. And then it looks like she went sort of, you know, on a decline when she stretched out. But she was running up against a couple of Bob Baffert stablemates that had Juan Hernandez aboard. So, you know, I'd imagine that Battle of Rouge, you know, really wanted that grade 1 that day. That was a special moment. And Explora won the next time out in the Oak Leaf. Nothing wrong with that. And then this one came back and showed that she still has potential after those 2 starts, running a 74 last time out and winning pretty dominantly as well.
Yeah, no, I thought one very handily, one very easily, professionally, 5-horse field, but, you know, broken and actually sat a little bit, rated, and then easily pulled away with Juan aboard. And yeah, listen, Bob's only got 1 in this race. Juan's going to be his number 1 call. And when, you know, that's, you and I know how to read the tea leaves sometimes with this, and you can sometimes read the tea leaves of when one jumps off of one for another. You kind of have a sense of which one's maybe a little bit more alive than the other one. But when you only have 1 in this one, she certainly seems like the one to go toward. But what's interesting is her pedigree is, you would expect a little bit more distance, but she seems like she's probably going to make a career as a sprinter, even though she's sired by Curlin out of an Into Mischief mare.
It's interesting. The dam herself, Motivated Seller, who's sired by Into Mischief, the only time that she stretched out to 7 furlongs, she lost. And she had won, I'm pretty sure, ran pretty well in all of her other starts. That was like her one-off race in a grade 1. She lost by 10 lengths, ran 9th that day, the dam. But she's sired by Into Mischief. This one has the Curlin influence on top. That's what I'm banking on. I don't know if, you know, she's going to go much further, but I think this is a perfect spot for her. And I like the fact that the jockey hops back aboard.
Yeah, no, absolutely. A lot to like there. And let's move to the number 4, Revera. And Revera is an interesting horse. You and I both have her 3rd. Not to say she couldn't finish 2nd, not to say she couldn't upset this field, but from a betting standpoint, when you have a 3-5 favorite like this up top, I just am not going to use a 2-1 second choice underneath in an exacta, because you're getting absolutely no ROI for your investment. And so I'd rather try to find a price to throw it underneath. Not to say Revera doesn't have a chance at winning this race. She absolutely does, especially if she runs back to that debut effort.
This one's one that could want a little bit less distance, even just
Interesting,
based
yeah.
on her running lines, and also the fact that, you know, she's sired by Lexingtonian. He's the son of Speightstown,
Yeah.
big sprinting influence, and you know, she's very fast. That's why I have her third, and
Yeah.
I'd imagine that she's going to sit a pretty nice trip. Her speed should serve her well and help her maybe carry all the way around as well. But for me, you know, I kind of agree. She's 2-1. I wanted to put her third, but she's definitely a main player in here. I just think this distance is probably the max.
I'd have to imagine that too. John Sadler, the trainer, off to a good start at the Del Mar meet, 5 for 14, 36%. Antonio Fresu up on the mount, remains up for this one. And interesting, she's got a little bit of the same trajectory that Himika had in terms of the debut race was the best buyer. Slow decline since then. Last time was in that Anakaya and faced off with Himika going 6. Now we're going a little longer. I don't know how the tables turn necessarily this time around. So, you know, it just faded up on the lead and wasn't able to make up any, and wasn't able to really kick back at Himika when she went by. So hard for me to make a case for this one.
I completely agree with you. And the reason why I do believe she's still a main player, I mean, 7 should be no problem for her. And also the fact that she ran up against Explora on debut, and she ran second to her, and that filly's pretty good. And, you know, that race I liked from her. So maybe tactics can change. Maybe they try to rate her a little bit as well.
True.
To have a better shot at finishing up well. I'd imagine we could see tactics change. But if not, she's going to be a big pace presence.
That's a good point, because she does draw outside of the other prominent speed in this race. Although we should say there's not a ton of speed in this race. I mean, I imagine if Juan wants to, Juan could just take Himika to the
100%.
front. And Revera, kind of the same sort of thing for Antonio Fresu. So it's going to be interesting to see how they break. And that, I think, could have a big influence on everything. Last time, I think Rivera's situation was a little forced in that she broke on the inside rail, and you got to go on the inside rail. And so, you know, but her maiden breaking victory was coming from off the pace. And breaking a little further outside. So maybe you're right. Tactics change a little bit. I just also have to say Lexingtonian, I don't know if he's one of my favorite horses, but he was one of the funniest horses in that you never knew if Lexingtonian was going to win a grade 1 or just lay down in the starting gate. You just never knew. Lexingtonian, and maybe his offspring will be the same way. Maybe they run a hole in the wind, maybe they don't. So we'll see. But yeah, it's certainly a new sire there with that Speightstown influence. Let's go to number 5, Heaven's Bolt. This one's for trainer Richard Baltus and has Kazushi Kimura up, had Flavian Pratt up in debut and won that race, then stretched out to 1 1/16. We don't want to do that. Did not, you know, basically walked home, and now is cutting back. I took a long look at this one, really thought about this one in my top 3, but ultimately didn't go there.
Yeah, this is a very logical option. It's just not one that I landed on. I think that the other 3 are a bit better. But this number 5, I think you pulled a pretty interesting stat for as well in terms of the jockey, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Kazushi Kimura 1 for 32 right now at the Del Mar meet. So not riding that well. I mean, Kazushi might not always get the top mounts, but you'd like to see a few more victories in there. And so when your jockey's only at 3%, maybe just losing a little bit of confidence. And I think it's also notable, Hector Barrios rode this horse last time and is actually on one of the other long shots in this race. So new jockey up, 3rd jockey in 3 starts. I wasn't sure what to make of this one. And I'd rather go with a horse like Bourbon and Ginger at 15-1 than Heaven's Bolt at 8-1.
Exactly. It was the same type of shot that you'd be taking with either horse. So we both went with the biggest price out of the 2, and that makes all the sense.
Yeah, I think so. And listen, you know, ran well in debut, but it was certainly not a horse with exceptional speed. So the question is, if the race is going to be dominated up front, this one's not going to be there. And I don't think there's enough pace for there to be a pace collapse. Now, if there is a pace collapse, I don't think there is going to be, but the number 6 Cosmic Heat at least is a little bit interesting in that scenario. Sired by Maxfield, Peter Urton trained with Hector Barrios up. This one is going to come running late. The question is, I think this one wants to go longer, right?
If I had a horse in 4th, it would be this horse. That's for sure. Just because the profile is a little bit interesting. I mean, sire by Maxfield. Maxfield is a sire that I'm very interested in, that we've seen the first crop from this year. And I think that they're going to improve as they start going longer as well. You'd imagine his stats aren't great for dirt routes right now, but as they keep, you know, as we see more and they keep on running, I think we're going to see that improve a ton. In sprints, the numbers look insane
Right.
because it's been a lot of first-time starters
Sure,
and
yeah.
this and that. I think this one will improve a lot when she's finally able to stretch out and look the Broodmare Sire's quality road as
Yeah.
well. And, I think this is one I'd 100% put in fourth. I'm not going to go as far as to say, maybe this is the upset. I don't
Yeah.
love the way that the horse drew either in
Right.
the field. And, just one that's definitely going to be coming late. An interesting horse. I mean, maiden optional claiming, first time out, breaks the maiden. That kind of turned me off to her a little bit.
Yeah.
But this horse could surprise.
Could surprise. Yeah. I mean, this is an interesting one for Urton. I mean, it would be a huge price to even hit the board.
Mhm.
But I do think there's something interesting with this horse. I mean, granted, she was only a $25,000 purchase. So we've seen some of those Maxfields fetch 6-7 figures. So, was a lower priced Maxfield in that regard, might speak to just maybe how she vetted or who knows, any sort of number of things taking place at the sale. But showed at least that talent in debut. And listen, I don't care if it's a maiden optional claimer. You basically go from last to first, going 6.5 at Santa Anita.
It's impressive.
That shows that you can run.
Definitely. And one that I don't have in my top 3.
Yeah.
And that I think will be better going longer.
Yeah, I think so too.
I don't think it's impossible this horse hits the board either.
This will be a nice optional claiming allowance horse out in California. Maybe going a little bit longer, I think, at some point. So, yeah, listen, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch this Desi Arnaz Stakes at Del Mar on Sunday. And do you have a favorite I Love Lucy episode?
No, I'm not too well educated on the series, but I am aware of it.
Everyone, the famous one is when she's eating the chocolates on the assembly line.
I've
the chocolates
seen
keep
that.
going. Yeah, that's the famous one. But we love Desi and love the Desi Arnaz Stakes here at Del Mar. Like I said, if you're not playing on NYRA Bets yet, make sure to use the promo code BONUS200. If you use that promo code, you get up to a $200 deposit match bonus. So make sure to use that promo code BONUS200 today. So we're both going Himika. We're both going Bourbon and Ginger underneath. If we hit that exacta straight, might be able to afford a little Bourbon and Ginger in one of the cocktail bars in Manhattan. You never know. But listen, hope you guys are playing the Desi Arnaz on NYRA Bets. And for Kaylie Shapiro, my name is Matthew DeSantis. Wishing you a great, profitable day at the races. And reminding you, friends, it's now post time.